Dylan, I have a question for you. During the Yamo no-hitter, did you send your jinx tweet?
No, he did it.
Why didn't you send it?
I was sleeping.
Once again, Dylan Hernández and I are the worst two columnists in America. He's sleeping during the Yamo thing.
Hello and welcome back to Dodgers Debate. I'm Jack Harris, the LA Times Dodger beat writer, along with our columnists Bill Plaschke and Dylan Hernández, who I see neither of you are sitting in the Delta Lounge at LAX this morning. So
You're unbelievable.
Another solo road trip.
So are you paying for that lounge?
Unbelievable.
Are you paying for that lounge?
I have a credit card that gets me access. The lounges are like critical to this job, I feel like, which I know doesn't come across as spoiled or privileged at all. But, when it's 9:30 in the morning and I can get some only orange juice, I promise it's nice.
I covered baseball 10 years, never set foot in a lounge.
Well, you did it wrong.
The only time I've ever been in a lounge was with Jack. He took me in as a guest.
Unbelievable. And then Jack...
this is the thing, right? Is he sold this thing, let's do it over Zoom in the morning because it'll be a good picture of me at the airport. I'm thinking, right, he's against the wall somewhere, sitting like in, terrible Terminal 5.
We're seeing suitcases rushing by and businessmen.
Yeah. He didn't grow up like us, Plash.
Look,
unbelievable, Jack. And Jack,
you can see people going by. See, there's people.
What's that hat you're wearing? Is that a surfing hat?
It is a surfing hat, yeah.
Have you ever surfed?
No. Well, I've tried.
Jack, what a
I've
phony.
tried.
Jack is like the Dodgers. He's an imposter.
Whoa.
We went hard there. I mean, I was actually going to ask you, because like last night, right? I mean, that was a huge win for them, I think, in the sense that they kind of got the performance from Dustin May.
Huge
that
win.
They desperately need. After they were, swept by the Angels, I got a text from somebody who works for like another team and telling me I've never seen their pitching like this decimated. And just when you look at the
Which
schedule,
is a high bar.
Yeah, you look at the schedule, right, for the upcoming month. I think 26 games, all against teams with winning records. 23 of them against teams that would currently hold playoff spots. This team just got swept by the Angels. I'm kind of thinking, man, this month could get ugly. So Dustin may at least like kind of calm the waters temporarily, but I mean, we'll see. So Plash, you don't believe in this team right now? You think that they could?
No, I was the first sweep by the Angels in 15 years was really threw me for a loop. They didn't seem to have the intensity they needed. They didn't and again they had no pitching. The only pitchers who've won are Yamo and May, and the only stars that have won in the past 2-3 weeks. I mean, they have no pitching. And let's face it, in the second game against Arizona, the D-backs imploded in the extra innings, so that's why they lost. And last night, Teo saved the day. If it wasn't for Teo, they'd have lost the game 1-0. So I just don't feel they have the even though the offense is scoring the second most runs in baseball, I just don't feel they have the late game impetus or late game depth or the late game arms to get through. I think after this 25 game stretch, I wouldn't be surprised if they're not in the playoff contention.
I'll play devil's advocate here for why they could maybe get through this month. Okay, even though I'm not convinced of it myself, because yes, like the pitching, like Lou Trevino had to come in and get 4 outs last night. Dylan's like, who's Lou Trevino?
Wait, fast question. How many majors has Lee Trevino won?
Oh, is he 3 or 4?
4, you're right. Good call. 4. Good job. All right, go ahead.
On the flip side of this, I think the last 2 nights are good examples of how they can manage this next month, which I agree with you, Dylan. Like, this is going to be a really key 4-week stretch here, because if they can get through it okay, then the schedule softens up again. They can probably go down the stretch of the season with a comfortable division lead. If not, like, they're going to have a hole to dig out of. What happened the last 2 nights is you had a team that didn't panic, even in the face of a 4-game losing streak, even in the face of, looking like they were going to waste this start from Yamamoto that for a while was shaping up to be a no-hitter. They can put at-bats together when they need to. They can put innings together when they need to. One of the interesting things about this series is, I think the most important inning of that whole Diamondback series might have been that 9th inning on Monday night when they were down 9-3, but they put together a big inning. They scored a couple runs, and they got Shelby Miller, who's effectively the Diamondbacks closer right now, into the game that night. And no, they didn't win, but this is the kind of mindset that they have as a team and as an offense. Is like, look, there are things we can do every single night to put ourselves in better positions moving forward. And because they got Shelby Miller in the game Monday, they felt like he wasn't as fresh when he came in on Tuesday in the 10th inning, even with the 2-run lead that he couldn't protect. And then they had some confidence going into Wednesday. It's a really veteran team that obviously has been through a lot. And so I think that in situations like this, where they're losing games, where all their pitchers are hurt, where, they have these games where they can't get the lineup to get going, even when the pitching's really good, situations that might cause more panic or frustration within a team, this group has seemed to handle pretty well. And I think it all falls in the same category of like what we talked about going back to the start of the season with the 8-0 start, how they handled that, how they came back in games then. So I don't think this is going to be an easy month coming up. And I think that the pitching, I mean, if anything else bad happens with the pitching right now, like they're basically down to their last lines of defense here. Like there's not really anybody you trust in the minor leagues to come up. And the bullpen, they don't have any right-handed relievers at the moment that they really trust outside of like a Ben Kasparius. Even Tanner Scott, has been somewhat shaky. So there's a lot of things that could go wrong over the next month. But they do have the lineup healthy. They did show an ability this week to kind of snap out of a doldrum before it became really bad. And that's the kind of thing they're going to have to repeat over these next 4 or 5 weeks, granted, against much better competition, to kind of keep themselves where they want to be in the standings. And I think these last 2 days, if you're a Dodgers fan, should give you some optimism that even though there's a lot of things wrong with the team right now, they can still find ways to win games even when they're not playing their best.
Dylan, I have a question for you. During the Yamo no-hitter, did you send your jinx tweet?
No, he did it.
Why didn't you send it?
I was sleeping.
Oh my God! You didn't watch the game?
I was sleeping, and then I woke up, and then I saw that like an hour earlier, Jack had sent me a text message saying, "Hey, I really need a jinx."
I know.
So
I was
a
waiting.
panic text.
What's going on? So
he goes, what happened? And I was like, Yama was flirting with the no. He's like, oh, so is this a no? It's over now.
Once again, Dylan Hernandez and I are the worst 2 columnists in America. He's sleeping during the Yamo thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Not to mention, here we are thinking that me tweeting about it's actually going to jinx it, right?
It does. It works. And Jack, let me ask you: would you rather, speaking of the jinx, would you rather cover a no-hitter or not cover a no-hitter?
I would rather cover a no-hitter, and I would certainly have rather honestly covered a no-hitter that night than a game that went from maybe a no-hitter to a blown save to extra innings to a comeback walk-off. Like the other night was terrible. Terrible.
Flash, it's not like when we used to do it, though. We would be on deadline.
That's
right?
fair.
And a no-hitter, I mean, the
designers, I hated no-hitters.
Right, they would rip up the page at the last minute. I mean, there was so much that like went into covering a no-hitter back then. Jack has it on Easy Street, man. Here he is in the Delta Lounge with no deadline anymore.
Surf gear on.
I do write a Flash gamer, but the other night it was not my finest Flash gamer, I will tell you.
Jack, is there vodka in that orange juice?
No, not vodka.
Champagne. Sparkling wine.
Hey,
they're too cheap. They're too cheap to buy champagne.
Sparkling wine and champagne offered a nice welcome gift. It would have been disrespectful to say no.
Jack, you went to something earlier, right? This idea of them kind of forcing Shelby Miller into a loss to kind of set up a win the next day. One thing Dave Roberts mentioned yesterday in his pregame press conference, right, was because I think right the Dodgers, right, they lead the majors in bullpen innings pitched, right, fewest I think innings from the starters. That during the stretch he's going to have to push the starters. And the way I took that was say some guy gives up 6 runs in 4 innings, right? He might ask that pitcher, depending on where his pitch count is, to wear another 2 innings just to kind of save the bullpen for the next day. And when was it in the Mets series, right? There was a Flaherty start where it didn't go well early, and they basically, right, they asked Flaherty to just kind of wear it, and they basically punted on that game because they just didn't have enough pitching to kind of go around.
The NLCS last year, yeah.
Right? Yeah, and it's one thing I think to do that like in a playoff series where they're like frequent days off, for the travel mixed into the schedule. In a situation like this, though, where you're going to be playing a bunch of games in a row, right? It's a regular season type schedule. I don't know, like, is this like kind of tenable? Because, right, in past years, it's always felt to me like and I think I've said this on this program too a bunch of times, right? It always felt like they had 10 guys who could beat like the Rockies on a Tuesday, whatever, right? And a lot of the wins that you need to get to October, right, you are based off wins like that. And right now the problem was their pitching set up for the playoffs. Now it kind of feels more the opposite, right? It's like, well, if it's a playoff series, you could probably get through with this combination of pitchers they have. But it might be tougher to kind of get through the regular season, and kind of the flipping of that to me seems really kind of interesting. And like it almost feels like Roberts now is going to have to manage a little bit more like it's October, and here we are in May.
Yeah, I think the reason that strategy makes sense is because what you can't afford to do right now, and this was the same calculus that they had in the postseason last year, even with the days off, but is if you're going to burn your top relievers, you can't lose those games, right? Which is why I like coming back and winning that game on Tuesday after you use Tanner Scott, after you used Alex Vezia, after you use Ben Kasparius, who are probably your three most trusted relievers in the bullpen right now. That was huge. Winning on these nights where Yamamoto pitched as well as he did and Dustin May pitched as well as he did, that's huge. I think over this next month, like 2 out of 5 times, given the current rotation, you're probably going to get not a great start, maybe just a really bad one. And I think where you start to see Dave Roberts push guys is even if there's like, if things don't look great early, he's not going to be like over managing, getting guys out of a game early. Like if he doesn't feel like they can win a game, then he's going to let these guys pitch out. He's going to try to get them as deep into the game as possible. He's going to try to save his top arms as much as he can and pick his spots to go after the games he feels like he can win right now. This is something that the Dodgers have done a lot over the last couple of years. I know it frustrates people to see them punt on games like this. And there is an argument to be made that it's not a great strategy because, if you had lost the last 2 nights in these kind of games you have to win, and then you're punting on other games where you're not even giving yourself a chance to come back, like that's the risk. I think what again helps this is the fact that you have such a veteran lineup that can, you know, almost even in games where they're struggling, find ways to manufacture innings, right? And so that if you're Dave Roberts, it's like, okay, even in the games where we kind of punt, like they did on Monday, we can find a way to stress an opposing team's bullpen, make it harder for them later. And then in games I feel like we can win, I really trust that our bats are going to give us enough to make good starts worth it or using all of our top relievers worth it. And it's a fine like line to walk, right? And if they don't nail it over this next month, they're probably going to find themselves facing a 3 or 4 game deficit in the division potentially, given how much they play the Padres and Giants coming up. But they can pull it off if they do it well, and that's kind of what's intriguing to me about how these next couple weeks are going to play out.
I'm not questioning that choice. I'm questioning whether like they can actually get through again when you consider the opponents, right? When you consider the lack of days off, can they actually pull this off? I mean, look, they don't have a choice. They have to do. They have to.
Yamamoto has to pitch. You need the best form of Yamamoto over the next month. You need Dustin May and Tony Gonsolin to be the better version of themselves more of the time. And then like you need Kershaw to throw out, a 5 inning 1 run start. You need Landon Knack or whoever else, a bullpen game to put together 5 or 6 strong innings. And then you need the bullpen to be stout on the nights you do go to the top relievers. So yes, I think they can, but that's not a guarantee. Like there's a lot of different ways these next couple weeks could play out. And so
was anybody
we'll
else
find
surprised? Was anybody else surprised he didn't play Will Smith on his bobblehead night?
out.
I was surprised. I was surprised.
Apparently, Mrs. Roberts was. He said.
I think that's wrong. I think you play a guy on his bobblehead night. I mean, what? They play 162 games. What the hell? Play the guy. It's his bobblehead. He can be a star. He didn't even get in the game. No, I'm serious. I'm serious. Why don't you play him? And does this?
Well,
what does Will
I
Smith
don't
think
think.
about this?
I don't think that the baseball operations department and kind of the marketing department are in communication.
I know, but what is Will Smith?
I agree. Look, I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. I was even kind of half expecting for Will Smith to like pinch hit, in the bottom of the ninth of a tie game and hit one out, right? No, I am 100% with you. But I don't think this was like a choice. I don't think they even considered it until like they showed up to the park. And kind of by then it was like, well, we already got our plans, so.
Do you think Will Smith gets hurt by this? You think he gets irritated by it. His family gets irritated by this.
No.
Well, yeah, I think he's probably pissed every day he doesn't play. I mean, these are professional
Well,
athletes, man, right?
sure.
Like, yeah,
I
and I
don't. I
think
don't.
sure, I think yes, and I think that this would upset him because, I mean, if you're not petty, you don't become a professional athlete, right? I mean, people like us that are kind of like, it's fine, you know. I mean, granted, we also like
Otani
physical talent,
has
but
become
Wait.
famous for his bobblehead night.
Yeah.
Bobblehead nights.
Wait a second, Dylan. Calling professional athletes petty. Didn't you send a tweet to a fan last night saying that you're petty like that? Oh, not me. I'm not petty. To me, actually, what was interesting about like the catcher situation this week is how they divvied it up. Rushing did the Thursday game when he came up. Then it was Will Smith. Then it was Rushing again on Saturday. So 2 out of 3 for Rushing, catching Kershaw. Now, obviously, he had caught him earlier this year. I think that was probably part of it, but that was interesting. And then the next 3 days was Will Smith, including the Yoshinobu Yamamoto game in which Dave Roberts said, I wanted like there's just more nuance there to how he pitches. I wanted Will Smith behind the plate there, which is why he ended up getting Wednesday off because they were trying to line this up. But I think it was just an interesting indication of like, okay, there's some guys kind of how much they trust Dalton Rushing right now, what they're willing to let him do, what they're not. And yeah, it kind of got magnified because of the bobbleheads.
Will Smith is the best clutch.
To me.
He's the best player hitter with RISP in baseball. He's
Yeah.
the best clutch player. You got to play him every night.
he's gonna die.
You got to play him on his ball.
We only see him as
I-
like crater in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I guess we didn't really talk about this, but like how much last week Rushing came up, but how do you want the playing time to be split? Because I would lean the other way. I'd say play Rushing 35%, 40% of the time, which is more than I think Will Smith catches like 7 out of 10 games generally. Like I would play Rushing more. You could kind of pick your spots with it. I think it helped this week to like they knew they had to give Teoscar Hernandez one of these games off, so they gave him Tuesday off and could keep him in there against Burns Wednesday, and then still had Smith in the lineup Tuesday. I would try to rest Will Smith because we've seen the last couple of years, like the second half, the production tails off, and maybe it's because of just random injuries he had, but certainly catching as much as he hasn't helped. And I think the more you can kind of ease his load, the better it'll be in the long term.
Well, I want to ask you about something important that happened last week. I was going through a drive-through window, and I get to the front, and they said, "Okay, we have your order, but it's not ready yet. Can you wait? Can you pull into the parking lot and wait?" I don't do that. I say I'm not leaving this.
I
window.
don't do. You're getting on me for being in the lounge. No, I'm not leaving the drive-through line.
I'm not leaving the drive-through because once you go to that parking spot, you're in exile. You're there for 20 minutes. It was a Jack in the Box, and I'm not leaving. You guys leave the window if they ask you to?
I do.
Yes.
Because it's like, look, I get. I kind of get.
I've never considered not moving.
Well, I mean,
If you move, you're done. You move, you're done.
You're putting pressure on them to produce your food as fast as possible, right?
Yeah,
it's like, right? You're putting pressure on them.
Well,
It's like having speed as a left-handed hitter, right? It puts pressure on the infield to, but
yeah, except when you put pressure on people to deliver food quickly in that scenario, it seems like you're inviting some worse outcomes into play.
right, like salmonella or something. Yeah, and also, man,
spit.
I mean, these people are like, they're just the workers, right? And it's not their fault if they're understaffed. There are a lot of factors.
You're right about that. You're right about that. Yeah, you're right. God, I feel terrible now. You're right. That's probably.
Do you play the don't you ever watch TV about Around the Horn?
Yeah, not for one more day. I'm not. Final day's tomorrow.
Oh,
you're on the last show?
I totally forgot about that.
Oh,
are you going to be on it?
That's a humble brag.
Yes, I'm on it.
Okay, all right. I'll actually watch.
You, Woody Page,
all the old time.
Bob Ryan,
Bob Ryan, Jackie McMullen,
Ellen J. Oh, it's going to be like a big round. Cool.
Yeah, we're all there. So
hey, you got to win, man.
The show's getting canceled, Dylan. We're all losers.
I remember the first time I read the LA Times in person. That's what excited me, was seeing Plaschke's face in the paper as like a 12-year-old on vacation. I'm like, oh, it's the guy from Around the Horn.
Are they going to replace it with anything like that?
Are they what? No, not. In fact, that's how bad they think we are. They have no replacement. They cut us with no replacement. They just cut us.
So people will now know you as Bill Plaschke from Dodgers Debate.
No, they will now forget me completely.
All right, one more
What?
top. Oh no, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was gonna introduce the one more topic. Are we on the same thing, Otani? No,
Oh no.
no, you weren't gonna go
You don't want
Otani.
to do a Chris Taylor obit here real quick?
We kind
Where's
of did already,
where's
didn't we?
where's he going?
Where's he going? I don't know. Somewhere on a minor league deal, most likely.
It was the right move. I just think he was great for when he was great, but I think I'm impressed that Andrew Friedman recognizes that the Padres and Giants are for real, and Arizona's for real, and he's trying to stay about as best he can. I think there's good moves.
I mean, obviously, you examine any baseball player, right, who's active, like he's gonna be injured, right? They're all injured. Everybody you see on TV is injured. And so they could have like phantom, maybe not phantom deal, but they could have put him on
He
the
was
injured
wearing a
list.
knee brace around since like the start of spring training.
Right. And from what I heard is that he wanted to play, right? Like he didn't want to just kind of be shelved like that. And I do think that kind of, right, just kind of put a bow on all this. It does kind of show the competitor that Chris Taylor was, and you know,
Because
that,
he could have ridden out a fake IL for 3 more
correct.
months and got to
Right.
10 years of service time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
That's a
All
Real
good
right.
quick,
point.
Flash.
your
Are you
your,
are
your
you okay
Otani
with
point.
yeah, so Otani started throwing some I think he threw by the count of the Japanese media 4 sliders and 2 curveballs yesterday. So he's finally kind of gotten out of just throwing fastballs in these bullpen sessions. Obviously, they're deliberately kind of slow playing this, and from what I hear, they're still not right. This did not expedite his timeline at all. They're still waiting for him, expecting him to pitch not until after the All-Star break because they do not want to jeopardize the bat, right? Obviously, you put him on the mound, you're putting him at risk to get injured, which could affect the hitting. Are you okay with this given where the state of their
No,
pitching
I'm
is?
not. You're paying him to. I said again, you're paying him to pitch.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about
That's why
that.
you're paying him so much money.
Two
Put him
million
in there.
dollars.
He's being
Let him pitch.
shortchanged.
Let him pitch. You better work out all his kinks now instead of in
You
September.
have to stop bringing up the contract, though, man. It's like the greatest contract any team has ever signed.
Well, for now, but it's
For
eventually
now,
going to catch up to him. But it's going to catch up to him eventually.
that's not the contract that's going to get them, man. It's going to be like Snell or Glass now.
It's
This
$700 million.
is a
I'm
great
telling you,
contract.
you paid him double to have him pitch. Let him
Dude,
pitch.
at the rate at which our currency is inflating, that 700 million is going to be like $2.
Dude,
Your
no
rent's
no
going to be
kidding.
$700 million.
You thought the contract looked good last year when he signed it, and now like great financial move by the
Don't
Dodgers
wait
there.
until September to see him fight through his first 3 outings. And maybe he needs to go back on the IL. Maybe he needs more
Yeah, I
work
mean
on his arm.
and that is kind of the point that I
Find
brought
out
up
now.
earlier, right? I am that does concern me, right? Is that okay? Even if he does come back and pitch, will he have enough kind of time to kind of round into shape of being a frontline starter in the postseason?
Right.
I'm not so sure about that.
Try it now. Don't do a Kershaw where you bring him back in September and he messes up and then you screw for the playoff.
Oh, and then you scapegoat him. They need a new guy to scapegoat every year, right? I mean, that was if we're gonna be honest, right? I mean, when you look back at this Kershaw thing, it was always just kind of convenient because everybody knew, right? Everybody in their front office knew, like if Kershaw's there on the last game when they get eliminated, no one's looking at them. Everybody's looking at 22 with his hands on his knees, so maybe they're
That's
setting
true.
up Otani.
Now,
Kershaw looked pretty bad, didn't he?
yeah, I mean, a bad first inning that was not helped by the defense, and then it was kind of fine.
You know what though? Like if you read his, and again, haven't seen video of it, but if you just read the post game comments, he seemed to be like oddly upbeat about it, saying it was just okay. It was just command. My arm feels fine. This is going to work out. And at this point in May, if he says he feels okay, I'm not going to overreact to just like one bad start.
They're gonna run him out there against the Mets. I'm gonna have my eyes covered. Although it's cool, you know what's really cool? And why do they play My Girl for uh Lindor? Why do they play My
Uh,
Girl?
oh, I knew the story. I think it might have to do with his wife or his daughter or something, and then the
It's a great
fans started
story.
singing
It's
it.
so cool.
That is
I
good.
love the Mets fans. They're so cool. And they get it and they interact with the players. It's great.
They interact with you last year.
Oh yeah, right. 2 middle fingers. Walk up the aisle. That's right.
Yeah, man. So you get to go to New York, huh? I'm really
And then
jealous.
Cleveland.
Yeah, and I
Very
get
Cleveland.
to stay in Queens. It's gonna be a great time. And then yeah, Cleveland.
Well, there's
Awesome.
the lounge there was open all night. Remember?
Oh, so now we're gonna use the lounge as like as a pro in my travel experience.
Have you ever ridden, Jack? Have you ever ridden Indians for Guardians?
I don't think
Oh
so.
shoot! Oh, I totally. You know what? I didn't include them in the list of upcoming games, but it's funny because I panicked right now because I'm like, I totally would have written that. I 100% would have written that. I just until you said that right now, Flash, I forgot they were the Guardians. I still think of them as the Indians.
I once wrote a whole story this winter on Juju Watkins, and I called her Juju Smith because there's the receiver. I've been doing this too damn
Smith
long.
Schuster.
Yeah,
All right, are we done here? I want to drink this thing.
drinking on the job. Go ahead.
Very good.
You lush.
It's just some orange juice.
Surf's up, dude. Surf's up.
All right, that's it.